Artist is Joshua Sobol. He's a playwright, maybe Israel's leading playwright, and a signatory of that letter. And with us also is Yonatan Jakubowicz, a spokesperson for the Israeli Immigration Policy Center. And Joshua, let me start with you. All over the world, countries are toughening immigration laws, gearing up, or they're deporting migrants or refugees or whatever word you particularly use. Why do you think Israel should allow these 40,000 Africans to stay?
Well, for two reasons, or three reasons even. One is a legal reason, the other one moral, and the third one is economic. Legally speaking, Israel has signed the Convention for the Defense of Refugees in 1954, a convention that Israel was one of the instigators of at the time. And this convention defines exactly what are the rights of a refugee and who is a refugee. And the refugee is defined as someone who has fled of his country out of fear of being persecuted for many reasons, political, ethnic, or other reasons. It stipulates very clearly, this convention, that a refugee who entered the country where he is seeking asylum, even if he enters that country illegally, and in most of the cases he will enter illegally because he has fled his country in an illegal way, so to speak, but to save his own soul. So even if he came in illegally, the asylum-giving country is not supposed and not allowed to expel the refugee without checking very carefully if he has the right to for the status of a refugee. Now, in Israel, the case is that out of these 37,000 adults and 5,000 children, approximately, only 10 people got the status of refugee, whereas in other countries, in European countries, there are between 70 and 85% who are recognized as refugees, people who came from these countries.
We'll have time to discuss some of the others, but let's let Yonatan respond to that particular point.
Very quickly, it's very important to understand that out of the 40,000 people, the majority never even submitted an asylum request. Out of the 65,000 people who came in, only less than 14,000 submitted a request. So the majority of them are not even in status of asylum seekers. That's very, very important to understand. Another important point is to understand that this agreement with third countries does not include people that have submitted an asylum request and haven't been answered, and children with families. So the Refugee Convention doesn't really have any much meaning regarding to this plan. And another important thing to note is that under international law and by the Supreme Court of Israel's authorization, there is no problem to transfer even genuine refugees to third countries. But as I said, that's not the case in this plan.
When you have people who are coming from places like Sudan or Eritrea that we all know are not peaceful places, certainly not at this moment, how do you decide what is an economic migrant and what is somebody who legitimately needs to escape his or her country?
Well, that's true, and it is very difficult, and sometimes it might be even impossible, but we do know that a large portion of the people can go back. Actually, out of the 65,000 people that were here, 20,000 have left, and almost half of them have gone back to their countries of origin. 7,000 have gone back to Sudan, and over 2,000 back to Eritrea. So it is important to understand that a large portion of these are not refugees, even though they're coming from countries.
What about those who are?
Right, whether those are, the state should check the asylum request. The majority never even submitted the asylum request. That's very important to understand. And after that, it's important to understand that the government has the legitimate cause to say we found third countries that will absorb them, and there's no problem to do that.
Maybe that's a good segue to the moral question, because even if the government has even a narrow legal cause, what is the moral argument you're making?
Well, the moral issue is that we Jews, we should be very sensitive to people who are coming and asking for asylum, because we remember that before the Second World War, when Jews in Europe felt themselves being threatened, they crossed borders illegally. Jews from Germany crossed the border into Switzerland, and many Jews sought refuge in France. And these two countries did not recognize these people as refugees and expelled them back into their countries of origin, which has cost them their lives. And therefore, I think that Israel must set an example to other countries now in Europe and to behave, I would say, above even any law.
Well, I want to pause on that and get, Yonatan, your reaction. How do you get around the moral argument that the Jewish state, with all of those people who were in a similar situation as you describe in history, will now turn the tables in that way?
Well, the Jewish state has chosen a very centrist position. It has never deported anybody back to Eritrea, Sudan, as opposed to many other European countries. People today are deported back to Sudan. By the way, today in Britain you can deport even people from Darfur back to Sudan. Israel has not done that. On the other hand, it has allowed them to work, it has given free education to their children and subsidized medical care for them. But Israel is saying that we are unwilling to absorb unlimited immigration. We understand that absorbing a mass amount of people might generate a pull factor. We've seen that already, and we don't want that. So we're not deporting people. We're allowing people to, part of these people with children, are not even including in this agreement. But we are saying that we found a safe third country for them to live in, and Israel's upholding its moral right if it found a safe place for them to go to.
Just briefly, there is some dispute over with the safeness of the country.
Yes, well, I think that the very fact that Israel is not expelling them back into their countries of origin proves that Israel kind of recognizes the fact that they are refugees, because otherwise, if they were only people who try to get better conditions of work, Israel would not hesitate to send them back into their countries of origin. But the fact that we are looking for a third country, and this third country, Rwanda, declared now that they are ready, of course, to accept people who are willing to come to Rwanda, but they are not ready to accept people who are being forced to
We're going to stop on that point. I'm going to let you respond when we're back. We're going to go out for a quick break. This conversation continues when we're back. Don't go anywhere.
I'm David Schuster.
And I'm Shayna Stulin.
Join us on I-24 News for our show Crossroads.
We bring you a comprehensive
and engaging
look at the global news and opinions from the crossroads of America.
Weeknights beginning at 6 p.m. Eastern, only on I-24 News. Every stone, every street, every scar tells the story of Israel. A place that speaks of the souls of Jews, Christians, and Muslims alike. Changed by time and conflicted, its magic still echoes in the hearts of its people. Join I-24 News' Jordana Miller on a journey through history. Watch Holy Land Uncovered every Sunday at 10:05 a.m. Eastern, only on I-24 News.
We are back here on The Rundown, continuing the conversation and the debate. A controversial plan in Israel to deport about 40,000 African migrants to a third country. Still here with us, Joshua Sobol, a playwright here in Israel and a signatory of a letter against migrant deportation, along with Yonatan Jakubowicz, a spokesperson for the Israeli Immigration Policy Center. Yonatan, before the break, Joshua was making the point that if Israel really doesn't think that these people are refugees, they would just send them back to Sudan or Eritrea, the countries they're coming from. Rather, they're going to a third country. What do you say to that point?
It's not that simple. Let's take the case of Sudan. In the world, majority of cases from Sudan are declined, and today those percentages are growing. The majority of people can even be returned. Israel cannot return people to Sudan because we don't have diplomatic relations with them. So what should Israel do? Should Israel just accept that? No. What Israel is saying that these people can go back to Sudan, but they have to go through third countries. Not to stay in those third countries, but just to pass through them. And as we know, over 7,000 Sudanese have gone back. So that's just one case, and that's showing you a specific case where it's not black or white. Because Israel can't send them back to their countries, that doesn't make them refugees. And another point is to understand that Israel is has dealt with a very large influx that has affected dearly, heavily, many communities in South Tel Aviv. And most of the Israeli society feels that it's too large an amount of people. And while some of them eventually will probably stay, Israel has invested a lot of money, a lot of effort to find a country that will absorb them, and that's a plan. And that has nothing to do with the question question if they're refugees or not, while we do say that the majority are not refugees.
Okay, Joshua, why don't you respond to Yonatan's point, and may relate to your last point about economics. The residents of South Tel Aviv, where most of these migrants have congregated, say that they are suffering from their presence. So how do you respond to that argument?
Well, of course, they are suffering of the neglection of the treatment of the refugees, because if the government took care of these refugees and classified them and found out who is capable of doing what kind of work and direct them to different branches in the Israeli economy, which is craving for manpower. The fact is that we are employing like 85,000 foreign workers every year, and another 80,000 who are working illegally in the Israeli economy, which is a growing economy. And as a growing economy, it needs manpower, always in a growing number. So these 35,000 people who are already integrated somehow illegally in the Israeli economy, they could be a very useful element in our economy if they have been directed to different branches.
So why not turn a positive into negative?
One more sentence, and then of course they would leave the south of Tel Aviv and spread throughout the country.
That's a good point. Let's hear
Spreading out people means absorption. What Israel's trying to find the midway between, once you absorb people, you're sending a very dangerous message to people trying in Africa, and that may renew the flow into Israel, and that's what Israel wants to stop.
Well, the fence has been built across the Egyptian border. That's where most of them were able to come through.
But fences have not proven effective against illegal migration anywhere in the world.
Netanyahu says they're incredibly effective. He is bragging about the fence to President Trump.
But it is important to understand that most of the migration today to Europe and even to part of it to North America is through the sea. Israel is close to Africa. It has a very long sea border, and it's much easier to get from Suez, where a lot of migrants leave to Europe, to Ashdod than to Europe. Israel does not want to send that message, and it's looking for a midway. The European policy has failed. It's failed its people. It's failed the migrants. 3,000 people a year are dying in the Mediterranean, while Israel has stopped the trafficking of people in Sinai because we've stopped the border. I think not only should we not, I think the world should learn from Israel's experience and action and should be exported.
Yes, well, the fact is that in 2017, 0 infiltrators came through the southern border of Israel. There was no any illegal infiltration into Israel. The border is closed, and we are not threatened by waves of illegal immigrants. We have to deal with these 37,000 people, and we can easily absorb them. And I don't think that this will send a message to the rest of Africans that they come to Israel in huge numbers.
Exactly what happened before.
Because before the border was open, and now the border is closed.
Now the sea border is still open, and if they can go to Europe, they can come to Israel.
No refugees tried to come to Israel through the sea border.
Because Israel's policy today is very unwelcoming to migrants.
I don't think this is the
main reason.
Anyway, I think that it is a duty for, I would say, for us as Jews, to treat refugees and asylum seekers in a way that we would have liked to have our people being treated when they were in dire straits in the 1930s.
I agree.
I think our people would have been happy to get the reception that they get here.
Well, we have to wrap there. An important conversation that's happening, obviously, not only in Israel, but really around the world in terms of how to deal with immigration and what definitions the governments make of them. Yonatan Jakubowicz